Assemblywoman Nora Campos, join us. Assemblymember Nora Campos has been on numerous state assembly committees, some of them which include the Campus Climate Committee, the Assembly Health Committee, the Budget Committee, Status of Girls and Women of Color Committee, Women in the Workplace Committee, Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials Committee, Neighborhood Services and Education Committee, Transportation and Environment. I called these out because I know that the questions that are coming up kind of touch on those, so I think it's great to know that Nora, you bring that to us in terms of experience. Anne Revel, please join us. Anne is a dedicated life to public service and to fight for justice and equality. A distinguished attorney who never backs down, Anne will take on special interests and fight for the residents of State Senate District 15 and for families across the state. Anne was raised in Chile by her Latin American mother and her American father, and ultimately the family settled in San Jose. A tireless advocate for women in marginalized communities, Anne was the second chair in the pioneering affirmative action case for women in the workplace, the only U.S. Supreme Court case on this issue. Anne served as the FEC commissioner under the Obama administration and brings a wealth of experience and service to this community and the country.
Thank you.
Dave. Supervisor Dave Cortese. I've seen you in action. I know the work that a supervisor has on their shoulders and the burden they bear when they go home and have to navigate all of those issues and help prioritize. Dave grew up in Santa Clara County, in Santa Clara Valley during a period of great growth and expansion as the Valley of Heart's Delight transformed into Silicon Valley. He understands the great opportunities and challenges facing our region and is working to ensure everyone has access to the American dream. After years of running his own business, Dave took all the lessons in public service he learned from his father, former Assemblyman Dominic Cortese, and ran for the trustee in the Eastside Union High School District. As a trustee, Dave jump-started dormant plans to build a new high school in Evergreen and co-chaired the $80 million bond campaign that led to Silicon Valley's first new high school in 25 years. Following his service as trustee, Dave served 8 years on the San Jose City Council, including 2 years as vice mayor. He currently serves on the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, where he served as board president for 3 years. Thank you all so very much for being here. So just to give you a little background in terms of what the guidelines are going to be tonight. It'll be 1.5 minutes for each of you to introduce yourselves. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. We should have done a 2-hour forum here for each but 1.5 minutes for you to introduce. We will have 6 questions in total, each allowing 1.5 for each of you. And finally, in closing, you have 1 minute to close. So what we'll do is we'll start off with the first question going to Supervisor Cortese, and then the second one will go to Commissioner Revel, and then the third one. And we'll kind of do that so that the first question, the first person answering the question will be different. So the very first question is, Silicon Valley is one of the largest economies in the world and a leader in producing high-paying jobs. Although we have one of the highest number of billionaires residing here, we also have a large number of residents who can't afford to live here, have to commute 3 hours to get to work, and have large number of families and individuals who are homeless due to high cost of living and living expenses. How will you address housing and transportation in a sustainable manner?
Are we doing openings besides the question?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Let's start.
And is there a timer?
Okay, yes, and that's 1.5 minutes.
But no one's You'll call.
Okay, so Belinda, will
Right
you
here.
hold
Okay,
up?
Thank you.
Will you hold up the 30-second mark so that after the first minute, you'll see that, and then when you end, it'll be that. Thanks for pointing that out.
No problem. Thank you very much. I think it's working. So thank you, first of all, for the nice introduction. Yes, I've served at the school board level, at the city level, and now since 2008 at the county level. And I'm very, very excited about serving in the state senate. And part of the reason I'm excited about that is because I believe that in Santa Clara County, we've been leading on a number of issues that we will be talking about during this forum. That'll be of great concern to all of you. And we haven't been following anybody else's lead. I mean, we've been leading not only here in California, but across the nation in many regards. And we're very innovative on social policy. And I can't remember a time in my more than 2 decades of public service, elected service, where things have been as aligned in Sacramento for us to do great work around housing, around homelessness, around climate, around education, around immigration, and so on. The issues that we have been leading so vigorously on in Santa Clara County, and the issues where I've personally taken the lead, are exactly the issues in Sacramento right now where that same leadership is needed. So I'm excited. We're running a powerful campaign. If you want to know more about that, there are people in the room that can tell you about that, and we'd love to have you be part of it. Thank you.
Christopher Renault, will you just go ahead and pass it on first?
Thank you. Can you all see me? Stand. I want to let you know a little bit about myself. It is true that I grew up in Latin America, but actually I have lived in Santa Clara County in this district for 50 years. And I was county council. I worked in the county council's office for over 30 years. So I have a great deal of familiarity with all the issues in the county. And and of course after that, President Obama appointed me first as to a Deputy Assistant Attorney General fighting against those people who were cheating consumers and financial fraud, and then later appointed me also to the Federal Election Commission, and Governor Brown appointed me to be the political and ethics watchdog. And I have had a long career of public service, and I have not run for office, but actually the reason I'm running for office now is because now is a time where people are dispirited about our democracy. And why they're dispirited? They feel like they don't have a voice, and they feel that the public officials who are representing them are not actually representing them, and they're really representing other interests and not the people themselves. And so many of those solutions that we've talked about and problems that we've talked about haven't occurred for many years in this state and in this county. Thank you.
First of all, good evening. And as it was stated earlier, we have some good choices to pick from as we move forward in electing our new senator for the state of California here in Silicon Valley. You know, I've been out of office now for a couple of years, and as a private civilian, I've had the opportunity to sit back and reflect, talk to my neighbors, go to my neighboring coffee shop and visit with folks there that are concerned, that have real concerns. We think that in Silicon Valley that everything is great, but the reality is that individuals have real concerns about what is happening here in Silicon Valley. The gap gets wider, where you start to have a community of the haves and the have-nots, and we haven't strengthened our middle-class community. And when we think about our middle-class community, we think about that from a different perspective. Everyone has their idea. But the reality is our middle-class community are individuals that are teachers, they're service providers, they're union workers. There is a whole spectrum of what our middle class is. And as I've had the opportunity to talk to these individuals, they have real concerns about what are we going to do in moving California forward. We live in the most innovative region in the world. And we need to think about how we're going to move Silicon Valley forward. I look forward to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you all for that intro. I do want to say that as an immigrant myself, it gave me great pride to learn that you were from Chile. And I think that what we bring to the table is something very special as well. And I think it's important for each of us to share those types of backgrounds, because since then, we've accomplished a lot. So I'm going to read that question again. Silicon Valley is one of the largest economies in the world and a leader in producing high-paying jobs. Although we have one of the highest number of billionaires residing here, we also have a large number of residents who can't afford to live here, have to commute 3 hours to get to work, and to have a large number of families and individuals who are homeless due to high cost of housing and living expenses. How will you address housing and transportation in a sustainable manner?
Well, this is an issue very near and dear to my heart. As many of you know, I co-chaired the 2016 Measure A campaign here in Santa Clara County, which created a $950 million bond issue that we are drawing down on now, thanks to you, the taxpayers, who were willing to support that with a 2/3 vote. And that's just the beginning of what needs to be done. We've already invested in 19 projects with those funds. $700 million of that money is dedicated to extremely low-income housing, which is specifically for the homeless. And that bucket of money never existed before here in Santa Clara County, even in the days of redevelopment. We need more of that kind of help at the state level. Think of it this way. Although I'm strongly in favor of Governor Newsom's approach and his willingness to prioritize housing, thus far, he's talking about $1 billion in the budget for the homeless for the entire state. That's what we did in 2016 here for Santa Clara County alone. And I just say that not to brag about how much our taxpayers approved here, but to indicate what the need is. We created that fund knowing that redevelopment had gone away and somebody needed to put together resources for homelessness and housing. At the state level right now, there are over 200 housing bills that are pending in the legislature. Some of them are renters measures, to protect renters protection measures, and some of those should go forward. And many of them are trying to strike a new balance between local control, between how much cities and NIMBY should be able to do in terms of stopping housing at a time when we're 600,000 housing units behind the curve in the region, and how much local control should be kept here. I think those are critical issues, and I think my experience as a city council member and as a county supervisor bodes well for me to deal with those at the state level. Thank you.
So, Linda, I just want to say real quick, if anyone went over, if you can just give a little extra for the others, I'd really appreciate that. Okay. Yeah?
It's the same question?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay, sure, thank you.
Doing the same.
It's quite clear that housing and transportation issues in this county and in this district have been affected by big companies that have come in with an imbalance of jobs and people coming from out of the area to work in this valley. And while that is a wonderful thing, the companies have not taken responsibility for their civic obligation to provide more money for housing, more money for transportation and to good life. Because not only is it an ethical obligation to the community, but also their own employees. I was told by some Netflix people that most of their employees who aren't in the C-suite commute from Vallejo. And that impacts the quality of life not only in Santa Clara County, but it impacts those communities as well. And my view about it is we have to rethink definitely the split role, and there needs to be more money spent in taxes by those companies and those other businesses that have this obligation to our communities. And so, yes, Governor Newsom has started, but there's not enough money in the state, and we need to produce more money in order to finance this kind of, the kind of housing and fix for transportation that we need. And so either eliminate that split role and make sure that businesses pay, but and eliminate the Prop 13 benefit for businesses only, and make sure that they pay, and also potentially adding more taxes on top just for those businesses.
Thank you.
So housing and transportation has been something that I've worked on for the past 19 years. And before I left the assembly, I passed a bill that was called Bridge Housing to make sure that we are addressing housing immediately for the homeless. And what it did is it gave the city of San Jose, it's a pilot program, the ability to be able to put housing in the pipeline as they're building permanent housing, so that we were able to house homeless individuals currently now and not have to wait. So that was one of the things that I moved forward with. And as we've seen, that has created the foundation for other bills that came after that. Transportation, one of the things that I believe is so crucial as we think about transportation, it's building housing, dense housing on transportation, where on the rail area where the infrastructures already currently exist. And I truly believe that local control is important, but if we are not creating the space for local individuals to feel comfortable to push policy that will allow housing to be built, affordable housing, because what we don't want to do is create a community where we are not letting and providing housing for individuals that are serving our communities here. The other thing that I think is important, as we move forward, we see this region, when we talk about housing, is that housing for teachers, firefighters, employees that service our communities where our children go to school are not able to live in this valley. And so we're losing a lot of talent. We're losing a lot of talent here in Silicon Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. In order to stay on time, this go around, we really try to stick to the 1.5 minute time frame here. And these are such great questions, so we want to make sure that the audience has an opportunity to ask questions as well. The next question is for Commissioner Rebel. The county of, and then to Assemblymember Campos after that, and then we'll circle around, okay? The County of Santa Clara has made an offer to buy several hospitals in the county. O'Connor Hospital is in San Jose, and South County Hospitals in southern Santa Clara County. South County. And the State Attorney General is opposing the sale. How would you address the situation and ensure access to health care throughout your district?
Well, I actually wrote an op-ed in the Sacramento Bee about this very question, and I think the State Attorney General's position is absolutely incorrect under the law, and it's incorrect for the benefit of the people in this county. The people in the South County, imagine if they have an emergency and they have to drive all the way to San Jose in order to access medical care. It's absolutely inappropriate, and I know that the county is fighting that issue, and appropriately so, because it is wrong policy for the state, and frankly, the Attorney General is doing it because he wants to have preeminence in this matter, and I've said it in the Sacramento Bee so he could read it, and it's not right for the people in this county.
So one of the things that I believe is important, that everyone should have access to health care within their communities. Individuals should not have to drive very far, like we see that happening in Central Valley. We are here in Silicon Valley, and everyone should have access to proper health care, meaning that they should have access to facilities within their community. They should have access to clinics within their community. We are in one of the most wealthiest regions in California, and it is not acceptable for the state of California to put barriers where we are not allowing our local government to be able to provide those services. So as I've always done when I served in the state of California, is to be a voice to make sure that we're not just at the table, but that our issues are being moved in the state of California. And one of the things that it takes to make things move in Sacramento is to be able to build relationships and be able to have your colleagues from other parts of California that don't understand that we are not just a community of rich individuals, but we are a very diverse community, and that we have a huge population of people of color and communities that are disadvantaged. And until we start making sure that there is equity across Silicon Valley and in the state of California, we're not going to be able to move our issues forward.
It's an interesting question because it's actually a little bit dated. The fact of the matter is that we closed on those hospitals already. They're part of the Santa Clara County system. They're part of the VMC system, and we now have, I believe, the largest public hospital system in the nation. We've integrated the employees. We've done that without labor strife, which is a task in and of itself. People are still working hard, and we saved 450 hospital beds in the process and 2 emergency rooms. So when you go into O'Connor, when you go into St. Louis Hospital now, you're going into the Santa Clara Health Hospital system. And the way we handled it is we told Javier Becerra he was wrong. We said, we don't understand. We like your positions on immigration. We like your body of work in terms of litigation against the Trump administration, but we don't understand why you're trying to interfere with basic safety net services with a county that's been leading the country in healthcare, that wants to take these hospitals and keep these services open for people. He didn't seem to understand. I don't know why. We went and talked to him face to face. He still didn't seem to understand. He dismissed a meeting in Sacramento in 5 minutes and sent everybody back home. He just got some bad advice himself. That's all. People make mistakes. But the fact of the matter is, we litigated. We took it every step of the way on appeal. We won those appeals. We got the blessing of the bankruptcy judge because those hospitals were in a bankruptcy proceeding, and they never closed even for a minute. They've been kept open seamlessly. So that's how you do it, basically. Thank you.
Third question for Assembly Member Katz. Both the legislature and the state party have been the subject of sexual harassment scandals. What will you do in Sacramento to protect women and other vulnerable individuals from sexual harassment and assault? What is your record on this issue?
Thank you for the question. This has actually been an area that I've worked on for the past 20 plus years. And as I was going through my body of work, I have carried many issues that have to deal with women, whether it's women that are who have been raped, sexually assaulted, human trafficked. All of these issues have been at the forefront of my leadership. And I will continue to be a voice in Sacramento to make sure that these issues are at the forefront, not only for Silicon Valley, but for the state of California. Because I believe that if we're gonna make changes for the nation, they have to happen here. And this Me Too movement, it's real. And the challenge that we have as women and men is to make sure that we continue to use our voices to make people feel uncomfortable, to not come up with excuses on why they're oh, well, that's my friend and it's okay. It is not okay for someone to go into a woman's space or an individual space without permission. That is not acceptable. And if there's one thing that I will continue to do is to make sure that we are using our voices louder than we possibly can for that to happen. And I have to say, kudos to California and to Santa Clara for recalling a judge who did not understand our issues here in Silicon Valley and in Santa Clara.
I think the issue of gender violence in general, across the board, really regardless of gender, is the most serious issue we have here in Santa Clara County, particularly in terms of its underfunding. We get tens of thousands of rape hotline calls in this county that come through community-based agencies that are funded by the county, but we don't and have not created the capacity yet to make sure that we have full response, the kind of response that we should have in a county of 2 million people, in a county with a $7 billion budget. We're working on that. Supervisor Chavez and I have held a number of hearings. One of them is on women's issues last year, which resulted in a multi-page referral to the administration to fund up these issues. Tomorrow on our agenda, if you're interested and you want to come and speak up, there'll be an additional $5 million on the agenda directed to this issue. And it's a down payment. It really, I have to say, that it is merely a down payment toward crisis intervention, crisis response, and we need to do so much more. We need to continue to shift the paradigm. We didn't get the stop sign yet. I think what the women's movement has done, and frankly what the Kavanaugh hearings did across the nation, is dramatically shift awareness in terms of this paradigm that has to completely move in a different direction, because responding after the fact is just not going to be enough. Thank you.
I think at the heart of the issue of sexual violence and sexual harassment and the like is that we have to recognize now women are under attack in this country, and we're going backwards. We're not going forwards. I mean, you can see this from the laws that have been passed recently relating to abortion. And so we have to be really vigilant. And I will say that I have a long history of working with battered women's shelters, and in fact on the issue in Sacramento, I gave advice to the legislature. I went and testified and met with the heads of those committees that were dealing on sexual harassment. And today, I just had a meeting about a case that I just filed against Google for sexual harassment, where they paid a particular individual $90 million, even though he sexually harassed lots of women. And so I take this issue really seriously, together with all the other women's issues, and this is something that we just have to focus on and keep our voices strong to stop this discriminatory behavior towards women.
Supervisor Cortesi, this fourth question, starting with you. California's education system ranks near the bottom, that's 40th for quality. What have you done to help improve the quality of education, and what will you do to improve educational opportunity for all California students?
Well, I think education has probably been, the strongest common thread throughout my entire public service, dating back to 1992 when I was elected to the Eastside Union High School District Board of Trustees, and not only made education generally a focus, but particularly concerns about high-risk youth, at-risk youth, kids that were either dropping out of the system or becoming part of the system in terms of our juvenile justice system. And there were any number of things over those 8 years that I was involved with that I believe produced and changed the system for the better. A to G requirements, ultimately, requiring algebra and UC curriculum to be adopted by the school district all the way through. When I got to the city, there was a little less opportunity to work on education issues. It's not what municipalities primarily do. But we didn't let that stop us. We created 200 homework centers, 20 in my district alone, funded with small grants, matched to people who wanted to do that work. I wish those still existed to this day. And at the county, I didn't let any grass grow under my feet there. We had seen the demise of something that we call the Schooling Services Program when I got there. It was cut to nothing. And since that time, we have resurrected it as a $40 million a year program in 199 schools, 13 school districts, where we put coordinators, counselors, clinical folks right on school sites who have access to county data and help kids and intervene with them before they get in trouble.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your start in your life and where you get in your life shouldn't have to depend on where you were born and the fact that your poor school district is right next to a very wealthy, well-funded school district. It just shouldn't. And I support Governor Newsom's plan to give greater early childhood education, greater kindergarten, long, full days of kindergarten, but we also have to start to think about the way that schools are funded. And unfortunately, we had situations with the basic aid schools and the other schools, and some of the very wealthy districts have incredible resources for children, and others have almost nothing. And that is something that can be changed in Sacramento. That is something that we need to absolutely focus on, so there's more money to equalize educational opportunity in this state.
Now, as a mother of a 10-year-old, I'm at school. My son goes to a dual language school, and I think that it's important I would like to see, and someday we'll get there, is that every child knows a second language here in the state of California. I think it's important, and that we need to embrace the other languages as we move forward. What have I done? When I was on the city council, I also was a part of that movement to make sure we had homework centers in our underserved communities and our schools that needed the extra resources. I pushed for that. I made sure that we continue to move for that. When I was in the assembly, I also made sure that foster children and children that come from disadvantaged communities get first choice, to make sure that they are receiving spaces and slots for after-school programs if they can't afford to pay for that out of their own pocket. I increased funding under Governor Brown for our education system, and we have to do more. We have to continue to make sure that we are looking at our opportunities for children and parents to figure out how they're making sure that their children get the best education they want. The one thing I want to leave you with is that as we look at communities and communities that are disadvantaged, and we look at our immigrant communities, all parents want their children to have the best education. We want our children to have a better education than we did. We want them to have better opportunities. And I want to make sure that the Googles, the Facebooks, all these other companies that are clearly here to stay, that we create a pipeline for our children to be able to hold those positions. That means that science should be the first thing that they need, math should be at the top, and I will continue to move forward on that issue.
Thank you. Commissioner Lavalley will take this next question first. Fossil fuel companies and their affiliates have a powerful lobbying presence in Sacramento. Will you take a pledge to reject any campaign contributions from fossil fuel companies and their affiliates?
I have already taken that pledge. I've made it very clear. I will not take any money from fossil fuel, from natural gas, from any of those companies with big oil. No money. No money from tobacco. No money from big pharma. I will not take money from those corporations that have decimated our country.
You know, you gotta love Anne. I had an opportunity to sit down with her, and As a woman, I'm going to say this very clearly, that I really believe that in Silicon Valley, a woman needs to be representing us in Sacramento. And so even though we're at odds with each other, we're women, and I am a big fan of women. We have no representation from Silicon Valley as women. But to answer the question, so thank you for your passion. I really appreciate that. To answer that question, I am going to run a strong campaign. I'm going to be at the forefront. I'm going to walk. I'm going to raise money. And most of my donors are going to be small grassroots donors. I don't see that happening, coming my way. Not here or in Sacramento, but time will tell. And I will say this, that I'm going to run a clean campaign, and that I'm going to not run a dirty campaign as far as I can control what I need to control. And as we move forward, I think that as we move forward here in Silicon Valley in the state of California, if there are special interests in California that are harming our community, then we should not be taking money from them. Thank you.
Yeah, we've certainly had the conversation internally, having already raised several $100,000 for this campaign from non-PACs, from local interests. We have one PAC check for $2,000. It's not from the oil company, and we aren't taking money from fossil fuel interests. Let me just say why that is, though, because anybody can stand up and say they are or they're not. And this goes back a little bit to what have you done. When I was at the city of San Jose, we adopted the strongest environmental stewardship goals of any city in the country. When I got to the county of Santa Clara and sat with my colleague, Supervisor Yeager, we realized that the county had no environmental stewardship goals at all. So we wrote those ourselves. We brought them to committee, brought them to the Board of Supervisors. After that, we indemnified and joined a thing called Silicon Valley Clean Energy, a joint powers authority that provides probably to most of you, certainly this area, renewable energy in lieu of PG&E. You get that by default unless you opt out. And last year, realizing that Bloomberg had organized the cities into a climate coalition, but had left out the counties, I went back to Al Gore's Climate Reality Project, met with him, met with his director, and asked him to join us in Santa Clara County as the lead to create a climate coalition that would be nationwide. We announced that at Governor Brown's Climate Summit in San Francisco. We have 20 counties already, and our biggest fish so far was Los Angeles, who just joined a couple of weeks ago. And the pledge is not just to uphold Paris. The pledge is to be 100% renewable if you're one of those counties. That's why I'll be turning away offers of money from the fossil fuel industry.
Thank you. The last question, Assemblymember Campos, if you could start with you. A green economy can combat climate change while also creating jobs and lifting people out of poverty. What is one initiative you have supported for the green economy? What initiative will you support in this area in the future?
First of all, thank you for the question. And as an assembly member, I supported various policies that were good to the environment. There seems to be this misguided information about SB 32, which was a Pavley bill, which I did support when it came up for the second time on the assembly floor. People have asked me, well, why didn't you support it the first time? As a policymaker, I'm entrusted to make sure that there is measures in place to address all communities. And I've spoken of communities of color. I've spoken about being responsible to make sure that members that are elected by the public, that they're responsible in making sure that they make the decisions, that it's not given to another entity to make certain decisions when it comes to the environment. So I will continue to move forward and support environmental issues. And as I shared with other individuals when they asked me and said that you were good on the environment, I said, well, that's incorrect, and you should look at my record. And I will continue to move forward in supporting environmental issues in the state of California.
Thank you.
So I talked about a little bit of that in the previous question. Let me just talk about something that is probably makes it even more exciting for me to go to Sacramento, to be in Sacramento, and to try to uphold what we've been doing well here in the region. A few years ago, there was a Senate bill called Senate Bill 375, which required every region in the state, including our Bay Area region, to reduce GHG by certain quantified amounts by virtue of plans that would tie together every city and every county in each region and get them to put together transportation and housing goals that would reduce vehicle miles traveled, that would reduce emissions generally, that would in part do that by linking housing and transportation together. We are in the second stage of our Bay Area plan here. It's called Plan Bay Area, and that work needs to be upheld. Senator Wiener, some of you have heard of a bill that he was carrying that just died called SB50 in the legislature. And a lot of people view that bill as Senator Wiener trying to interfere with cities because he wants to just do massive housing production. Senator Wiener was my seatmate on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission when we adopted Plan Bay Area. And what he wanted and still wants is to make sure that when cities pledge to do a certain amount of housing to help us pull off this plan and reduce our GHG because you're moving housing close to transportation, that they actually do it. There's nothing worse than working on a plan at the regional level or at the state level for years just to have it undermined by local officials who aren't carrying out what they promised to do. That's what I want to do again.
In terms of what I've been able to do, while I have not had direct responsibility for things like green energy in my career, what I have had responsibility for is campaign finance law. And I know that the reason that we do not have a robust green energy policy in this country and in this state, and why we've been sitting on our hands when we know that carbon in 12 years is going to be an unremediable problem, and it needs to be done quickly. And the problem is that our campaign finance system has allowed people to not be responsive to the needs of this country and this state. And it's happened in this state as well. And politicians who take money from interests and who are beholden to other groups and do not make decisions that are independent, that are in the best interest of our state. And that's what we need to do. We need to change the campaign finance system, and I have lots of ideas about how to do that.
So that was the final question. We can move to your final closing, and then after that we'll take questions from the audience. So we can start with Supervisor Cortese.
Thank you for the great questions. Covered a lot of ground. There's some things we didn't talk about, public safety, and I would have liked to probably talk a little bit more about healthcare than just a specific question, because those are areas we really need to focus on in Sacramento as well as women's rights. Reproductive rights are under attack by the federal government, and it's really coming down to the state of California and counties to stand up and make sure funding is available no matter what happens, no matter if this president gets reelected or not. And that's an awesome duty that's going to be required by the majority of the state legislature. I just want to thank all of you again for considering me a worthy candidate, because that's how we were introduced, as three worthy candidates. I do believe we need more women in office. I've certainly supported my fair share, including my wife Patty, who's on the Eastside High School board, my colleague Cindy Chavez, Sylvia Arenas, who's in the audience, and many, many others. But I think more importantly, we need feminists. And probably one of the highest compliments I've ever received from an elected official many times is Cindy Chavez introducing me as a feminist. Because I think it's how you vote on the issues and who you are in the world that makes a difference. Not what your gender is, but who you are in the world when you have to vote on those issues. And my track record is there. and I have an enormous body of work in that area. Thank you.
Right on. So I'll stand for this one. I agree with you. I think it's a question of who you are in the world and the kind of experience and integrity that you have and that you've demonstrated throughout your career, and whether or not you take those positions that are in the best interest of all the people, not just some, not just certain groups, not just certain interest groups, that you care about making thoughtful decisions with integrity, that all the people can have somebody who's there as their champion. And that's what's important in Sacramento. It's really important to have people who are willing to work across the aisle, who can work with other people to come to really meaningful decisions to rectify all these problems that have gone on for too long. And we have talked about lots of them, and the county has done some great things, but it hasn't happened sufficiently fast in the state. And we are at a precipice, I believe. And we really have to have people who are going to be aggressive and assertive and make sure that change happens in Sacramento.
Well, this has been a good opportunity to be at my first forum with my two other opponents. I know there are 5 of us in the race. I think I want to leave you with this, that in the past 19 years that I've had the opportunity to serve this community, some of it as an elected, others as a community activist, is that one of the things that is at the top of my priority is to figure out and continue to do the work that we've done about creating affordable housing, middle-class housing, and connecting our communities together through transportation, and making sure that individuals don't have to travel 2 hours to be able to work here in Silicon Valley. I think that will address a lot of our other issues when we talk about the environment and having healthy families and making sure that our kids are doing well in schools because their parents are able to be present within a few minutes away from them because they're here in our valley. That is one of the things that I think I will continue to work on. And the other issue that I'm going to continue to be bold on is to use my voice for individuals that are sharing with me the concerns that they have about where Silicon Valley is going in this region. And I enjoy being a part of a community that is bold and that are thinking of ways to continue to be at the forefront of our nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Questions now, and since we're going to do questions now, but because we have only one remote mic, I'm going to walk around and let you ask the questions and bring it back.
Hi, my name is Frank Monticello. I just moved here 2 years ago from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And one of the things I was struck by, I'm retired, our grandson was just born, and we're taking care of him. But when I first got here, I was browsing the San Jose Mercury, I think that's what it's called, the newspaper. And they did a poll and they said, what's the most desirable vocation or job here in Silicon Valley? I mean, we're touting all the great jobs here. I would say, software engineer. Real estate agent was the most desirable job. And you would never get that result in Philadelphia, by the way. And one thing I would say, SB 50 that was just tabled by the chairman of the committee, 76% of Democrats in California support SB 50. 55% of the other party, believe it or not, Republicans in California, support SB 50. So I would like to ask each of you, if elected, will you support SB 50 in its current form in January or with any amendments that you can detail now?
Who would like to answer first?
Yeah, I've already taken a position through my regional government role. We've been very active in the housing bills of the legislation through the Association of Bay Area Governments, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, where I serve as a county appointee, and I've been there in a leadership role for a number of years now. And in the position that I took, and that I think I persuaded my colleagues to take, was to support with amendments. And the amendments were around some very specific issues. Who's going to control parking? How about height limits in certain neighborhoods? And Senator Wiener, there were 3 or 4 major amendments, if you want to call them that, or specified amendments that we asked for. I talked to him personally in Sacramento a couple days later, just the day before his bill died, and he was quite pleased that he was getting the kind of feedback that would allow him to move the bill forward with some amendments. We got to do something. This housing crisis is forcing people out. We have 157,000 in-commutes into the Bay Area from the Central Valley right now. Nobody in their right mind tries to get out of here on any afternoon, let alone a Friday afternoon, out 680 and out the Altamont. You could see it in real life. It's going to destroy our environment. It's destroying the next generation. And he's just trying to do what I said earlier. He's trying to hold folks accountable for the plans they put in place and what they say they're going to do in the first place. I don't think he's trying to force anything on anyone, and the bill needs to be cleaned up a little bit so it works for everybody, but it fundamentally should pass, and I would support it.
Let's keep our answers to 1 minute, 30 seconds. Thank you.
We clearly have a really serious housing problem in this state, and everybody in this state has responsibility for it, and no one should be exempted. But the problem with SB 50 that I see is that it shouldn't really be totally avoiding the rights of individuals who live in various towns to have a voice. I don't have a problem with having certain requirements, no question, but to eliminate local zoning ability to have people come before their town councils or their local cities to talk about their own communities is undemocratic, in my view. I think everybody has a need to talk about what is important to them and what is important where they live. And so those are concerns that I have with SB 50, and I think it can be remediated because there are lots of other alternatives for figuring out where housing can go in each community. Vacant land, various other places, and issues about height that, I mean, what would work along a transit corridor perhaps won't work in certain towns along a transit corridor. So it needs to be thoughtful, but yes, I agree with the whole concept behind SB 50. We are desperate for housing. I mean, my children can't live here. We have to do something.
The simple answer is yes, I would support SB 50. Are there some amendments that need to be made? Absolutely. But I think that unless we're bold enough to say we need to build housing, we need to build affordable housing, we need to build middle class housing, we need to build housing in Silicon Valley. And unless we do that, we are just going to continue to not create space for everyone to be able to live and work here in their own space. So yes, I would support it.
Arthur?
Thank you.
Arthur?
The next question.
I think we're going to limit the answers to 1 minute.
Yes, I think that's a good, I was just going to say that.
So,
The question has to be just 1 minute.
All right, I'll go fast. Mike?
yeah, that's probably a good idea. Belinda, if you could stand up at the 1 minute mark, so we know. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linda Hutchins, Knowles with Others Out Front. My biggest concern as a mother is climate change. And you're right, we only have 12 years to address this crisis. I only heard one of you clearly say that you would refuse fossil fuel money and take the pledge, which was Commissioner Ravel. I'm not sure about you, maybe you said that as well. I want to make sure that you go down the line and each of you say yes or no. And second, please, with your remaining minute, Could you please tell an example when you showed courage in facing the fossil fuel industry? They are the most powerful industry. They are threatening our future. How have you taken them on? What kind of vote have you taken or stance have you taken against the fossil fuel industry? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I clearly have already pledged, and I will tell you that when I was at the Department of Justice, I was in charge of the response to the oil spill in the Gulf. And I negotiated with BP and Anadarko, and I held their feet to the fire and made them cooperate because I flew over in a Navy plane looking at all that oil gushing along the coast, and they were responsible. And so I have strongly fought the industry.
I wanted to just look at some bills that I supported that have to do in AB 2729, which was Williams to increase to idle oil and gas wells. SB 32, SB 1000, SB 1262. So I did take a lot of votes around this. And the one thing that I want to make sure that it's very clear is that I'm independent. And I think it's a great place to be when you're running for office, to know that you are not beholden to anyone. And I think that I showed that in the 19 years that I've been able to serve, whether it's as an elected or as a staff person for an elected, and I'll continue to do that. Thank you. I will take the pledge.
I said yes earlier, so we're out right. You know, I think what's going on right now all around us, I'd love to see a crowd like this at Silicon Valley Clean Energy, listening every day. We do have some people here tonight who are very involved. We have a young woman here who is on the advisory for that organization. That organization is fighting every day against Pacific Gas and Electric, against the oil industry, to make sure that your right to 100% renewable energy is available to you at all times. That's not an easy battle. It takes place at the PUC, it takes place in the legislature. I've been a voting member of that board and part of that fight day in and day out. I voted at the county level to make sure that we created that organization in the first place to take on big energy interests and do the right thing. Hopefully I'll have many more opportunities in the state legislature to do things like that. But there's no question that we have in the past been leading the state. We need to do it on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
Art, fourth row.
Next question.
Art, fourth row. The young lady over there. Thank you.
You'll be next. It's going to be 30 seconds now. 30-second question, 30-second answer. A couple more questions.
Hi, what is your vision for making higher education more affordable, and would you support plans for either debt relief or free public education in California?
Yes and yes. I went to the University of California, Davis for my undergrad. I don't want to tell you what the tuition was. My rent was $75 a month. It was a fairly new apartment as well. And I worked minimum wage, 32 hours a week, all the way through college. And I was able to afford that apartment and my tuition. We need to get back to that. We need to do whatever it takes to get back to that. It's not right. I tell my wife, we have 4 kids, 34 down to 19. I tell them all the time, they haven't experienced an economy that supports their education yet, and we need to give that back to them.
The problem with inequality in education goes all the way from preschool to college. And it's a scandal how much college costs now. It really is. And I do believe that there should be debt relief for students. And, you know, I mean, just to add to this, the students who are at San Jose State who are homeless, who are living in their cars, I mean, it's really terrible and needs to be done.
The inequality there. Yes, and I think at some point we need to make sure that college, we have some of the best universities and colleges here in California, and our students, when I was there in the assembly, we made changes to make sure that individuals that reside here in California were getting those slots before people that were coming from outside of California. And that is a priority, and I'll continue to push forward to make sure that individuals that live here get first priority.
Art, should we go with yes/no questions too? Because we're at 8:25 right now.
This is gonna be real quick. California accounts for 25% of all the houseless people in the country. The Bay Area accounts for 50% of those in California. 50% of all women living outdoors have been raped. What would you do to change that? How are we gonna end that problem?
So thank you for that question. I will continue to do what I've done, but when I was in the state assembly, I chaired public safety. And one of the things that a woman hadn't chaired that for a long time. And one of the things that I did is I was able to secure $50 million to go towards creating housing for women that were human trafficked, who were homeless, who were living on the streets. And it was available. Now, I'm not there anymore. I don't know if they changed the pots because that's privy of the chairperson. So I will continue to make sure that funding is available for women in housing.
The problem of homelessness, particularly for women and families with children, is exactly as you described. And homelessness is a special need, in a sense, that for women in particular, and there should be small homes that are available. I worked with Destination Home on homelessness issues in Santa Clara County, and there is more funding now for it, and it really should be there so that they're not outside getting attacked, no question.
So we've done very well in creating permanent supportive housing money. I mentioned that earlier. $950 million, what we have not provided is money, a revenue source for shelter. It's simple. We need to get people out of the creeks, out from under the underpasses, out of the tents. We need to do that now, and we shouldn't be waiting. People are dying. I think 156 last year, if I'm correct. Okay, I stand corrected. More. And it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable that here we have an interim housing program that's in our riparian creeks.
Thank you.
I wish we had more time. We're going to have to cut it off because we're already behind schedule for questions. However, I would ask each of the candidates to hang around for a while and speak to people in the audience who would like to have questions. And now we're going to get on to our next stage, which is the actual voting. Linda Sell is going to say a few words about the
Thank
voting
you all
process.
so very much.
And let's all thank Pramila for a great job here. Thank you very much, Pramila, for moderating.
Hi, so my name is Linda Sell. I'm the corresponding secretary. And those of you who are members, you should have gotten your ballots. These are your written ballots. So we're going to go through 3 rounds of voting. One round, we'll do one round. If somebody gets 2/3, then they win. If nobody gets 2/3 in the first round, then next we'll do the second round. The second round will be the top 2 vote getters. So these are the ballots, the 3 ballots. And why don't we go to the next slide? Okay. Okay. So if you haven't gotten a ballot, then you see the people in back. This is the first round, so 3 candidates will be competing. Vote for one, or vote to no endorse or abstain. So Catherine will be walking the middle aisle in the next 5 minutes, and you can give her the ballot. Let's go to the next slide. This is the second round ballot. That will be the top 2 based on the results of the first round. Next slide. And this is the third round. If nobody wins 2/3 in the second round, then we'll have the third round to see if 2/3 want to support a dual endorsement of the top 2 vote getters. Okay, next one. So this is a schedule of events. So right now we're a little behind schedule, so you just get to the ballot box with your ballot number 1. And then next we'll be voting on motion. We'll be having a presentation on motion 2. And then we'll have, you should have all gotten this green card for the motions. And so vote with your green card when we do the motions. And then we'll announce ballot number 1 results. So Catherine, where's Catherine? Okay, Catherine's right here. She's going to walk back and forth the aisle. Give her only ballot number 1. If you give her ballot number 2, it will not count. So look at your ballot. It's the larger ballot, ballot number 1. And right now, I'm going to have Hoi Poon and Tara Sri Krishna come up. And they're going to get ready to present the environmental motion.
I'm here. Coming.
It's just a matter of, yeah, we got the approval. Now I can say it's been approved. Just tell them to sign it.
All right, let's go up. Wait, let me vote.
So as you're getting to your seats, first I wanted to special thank you to a few very generous people last month who gave generous donations to the club, whether in kind or directly. David Donaldson, can you show your hand? Turn around, he's in the back. And Michelle Dauber, who's right next to David there. And also John McLemore, who's not here today. He's on vacation, I think in Yosemite or in some nice park. But all of them have been very generous in helping out the club. When it comes to donations, the food here comes out of money that club members, usually board members, donate. So if you can donate a small, if it's $1 or whatever it is, over to the wine area, that would be very helpful so that we can continue to offer wine and food here at the meetings. I also want to recognize Linda Sell. Are you out there? Linda has been recently appointed as our new corresponding secretary. And Hoi Poon, are you here? Hoi? Okay, she's not here yet. I'm sure she'll be here later. Was also appointed as a co-chair of the environmental committee. And we know we're going to be having a very important environmental vote today. Catherine Williams and Belinda Stowe, are you here? I know you're here, because if they weren't here, nothing would be set up. You see? So they're the meeting managers. They make sure all the setup happens. Okay. If you want to vote today, I've been reminded, if you want to vote today for any measure, whether it's a candidate or for the other endorsements, it's very important that you be a member. So you need to join today. So please go to the back and join. If you're not a member, you cannot vote on these issues. You're certainly welcome to stay, of course. Fred Rahazer, are you here? Fred? Fred, can you hear me? Where are you? Fred, raise your hand, he's back there. Fred's our chair of the endorsement committee. And I want to thank Fred for putting together these questions that will be asked later today. Jenny Hutchinson, I want to recognize her. She's our vice president. She's working on her doctorate, so she's not here today, but she chairs our programming committee and our vice president. Jeff Levin, are you in the room, Jeff? He's right back there. He's probably giving you a ballot. And Jeff heads our newsletter and communications. Kristen Lim was recently appointed assistant treasurer. Kristen, can you raise your hand? She's over there probably taking your money or giving you a badge. Don Draper, are you here? He's right in the front. Why does he get the front seat? Because he is our videographer. So this entire event for those members who can't make it today, it's all going to be video. And then Bill James, I think the chair of our party, our county, is right here. So he's joining us. Let's give him a warm welcome. Thank you, Bill. And are there any electeds in the room? Could you please stand? If you're an elected, you got one over here. Can you announce who you are? Just City Evergreen representation, City Council. Any other electeds in the room? Yes.
Susan Ellenberg, County Supervisor, District 4.
Susan Ellenberg, County Supervisor. Any others? Yes. Okay, thank you guys. Okay, you all heard her. That's great. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Yeah. Excellent. Anyone else? Ken Dauber, Palo Alto School Board, sitting here in the back. Yes?
Larry Klein, Mayor of the City of
Mayor
Sunnyvale.
Sunnyvale is here. Welcome. Yes, sir.
Jared Elahi, City of Montecito, City Council.
San Jose City Council?
Montecito.
Oh, Montecito. Okay, City Council. Thank you. And any other electeds? Oh, we have another. Yes.
Campbell Union School Board.
Campbell Union School Board. Excellent. Anybody else? Okay. I know we have a lot of people that are going to be running, but if we did that, we'd probably be here a little too long. Let's see here. What else do I have? I think we're almost ready to get started. So that's all. Thanks. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention is if you are a new member, you just joined today, could you please stand up? All the new members, please stand up. Let's give them a round of applause. Welcome to our club. I hope this is the first of many events that you come to. We're going to have many forums throughout the year, and it's an opportunity to participate, and it's always exciting. Okay, so now I'm going to move to introducing our moderator, and that's Pramila, and she's right over here. And I'm going to say a few things about her so you have a little background on her before we get the candidates up on the stage. Because she's going to be asking all the tough questions. Pramila is founder of a corporate finance and business consulting practice supporting public and pre-public, high growth and startup companies in high-tech, biotech, and service industries focused on areas of finance and accounting, process transformation, and corporate governance. Prior to this, she has held finance and accounting positions at Pricewaterhouse Xerox Corporation, Silicon Graphics, and Accretive Solutions. Pramila has served on the 2008 DNC Platform Committee and as a delegate to the 2016 Democratic National Convention, and actively supports candidates at the local, state, and national level. She is currently the finance director of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party and the AD24 E-Board representative to the California Democratic Party. She cares deeply about issues involving women and children and has sponsored forums and supported efforts to highlight these issues. So please, let's give her a warm welcome. Come on up, please. It's all yours.
Good evening, everyone. You're here for a very important reason. We really need
In California, we have very strong leadership. There are hundreds of bills tackling climate change, getting to 100% renewable energy, and so on and so forth. And we are working in collaborations with many environmental groups to support 31 bills that are in the work right now. And Tara will be summarize the bills, and then we would like everyone to support the motion.
Thank you. And I just actually, can we all just acknowledge Congressman Mike Honda, who's here, who slipped through the back. Just give him a round of applause. Thank you. My former boss. So just a bit about the bills. So they fall under a few key policy priorities: wildfire prevention, clean transportation, habitat preservation, clean water, energy efficiency, toxic and waste reduction, including recycling, and drilling and oil restrictions. So just a few of the key bills. There are bills to make homes more fire resistant, more comprehensive retrofitting strategies, requiring that bigger trucks move from diesel to electric, requiring smog checks for bigger trucks, banning dangerous pesticides, including rodenticide, banning bobcat trophy hunting, which would be great, and making it easier to access solar, reducing unnecessary barriers, increasing our diversion rates, especially for single-use plastics, and increasing the recycled content that levels that are mandatory in plastic bottles. And this is an interesting one from Assemblymember Ash Kalra, banning single-use hotel toiletries, like those little shampoo and lotion bottles, which are really bad for the environment. Making electronic receipts the default, because receipts are wasteful. They also have harmful chemicals like BPA, wider setbacks between new oil and gas wells, stricter oil pipeline regulations. Lastly, just want to mention a possible 10% tax on oil and gas extraction, and almost every other oil producing state in the nation already has a tax. So, yeah, thank you. Great.
What a great and well-researched agenda for our club. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? I want to make sure that if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the motion, this is your opportunity. Going once. Going twice. Okay. To vote on this motion, we're going to do a hand vote. That means take your green card. And when I say all in favor, you're going to raise your green card and you're going to keep it in the air. And then we have counters. Jeff Orloff and Belinda Stowe are going to be our counters. So I'm getting ready to say all in favor, and when I say it, I want to see if you're voting yes, green cards in the air. All in favor.
Keep your hands up.
Keep your hands up while we count. What?
Just find out how many are against.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good? Okay, this side's counted. How are you doing, Jeff? Got it? Okay, all those opposed? Any opposed? Raise your hand. Any opposed? Other than one gentleman over there. Any opposed? Stop talking now. This is a vote. Okay, any abstentions? Anyone abstaining? Okay, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Motion is successful.
assets by an overwhelming more than 2/3, which was necessary. Belinda, can you just give me the numbers?
26 on this side.
Okay.
Are we waiting? Are we still waiting for a count?
Do we have a count yet on the first ballot?
Why don't we go forward with the second motion?
Go ahead. Oh, forward with the second motion. Yes. Okay, we have another motion that has been properly noticed to the club. This motion has to do with public banking. Okay, this motion is the Silicon Valley Democratic Club endorses AB 857, which enables public entities in California to create a public bank. Furthermore, the SVDC endorses the development of a regional public bank or network of public banks within Santa Clara County to provide cost-saving services to public entities and to serve local needs, including affordable housing, transportation, and education investment, adhering to principles of economic, racial, and environmental justice. Do I have a second on my motion? Second. Okay, that motion is made and seconded. Jeff, do you want to speak to your motion? Are you the person speaking to this motion?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. And the person speaking to this motion is right here.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Jake Tonkel, and I'm the chair of the South Bay Progressive Alliance Public Banking Action Team. We're super excited that we've had a lot of great success at the city, the county level, and now at the state level. So Tuesday of last week, AB 857 made it out of the Appropriations Committee, and it'll go to the floor vote in the next week and a half. Jeff Levine gave you guys a presentation last time, talked about the details. I have lots of handouts here as well that discuss what a public bank is and how we think it can move forward to make our city and county and region a more equitable place, and address some of the major financial issues that a lot of our low-income neighbors and community members don't have the opportunities to meet. Do I have the opportunity to answer some questions? Or we'll leave it
Why
at
don't we
that?
see if somebody wants to speak against the motion?
Sure.
Does anyone want to speak against the motion? Rob, do you want to speak against the motion? All right, come on up. Okay, so we have someone to speak against the motion, and then if there's time, we can do a question from the audience. Okay. Go ahead.
Now, I'm speaking on behalf of the Wall Street banksters, and we really don't want this. We don't like competition. No?
Okay, and now you understand the recent election in a way that few others do. Okay, so does anyone here want to speak against the motion in order to be fair? Okay, does anyone have questions that they would like to ask this fine young man about the motion?
We've done a really good.
We have one over here.
So, is it being proposed that it be run by the state, or that they be privately run, or they run publicly?
Publicly run, and AB 857 is specifically for cities, counties, and local JPAs. So it's up to that government institution to determine what the governance structure is. And that's where we also need your help as soon as all of this passes, because we want to make sure that community oversight is of the utmost importance for these financial institutions. Not having oversight is what caused the 2008 financial crash and what keeps banks getting away with a lot of the wage theft and gender and loan inequities, et cetera, that we don't have a lot of control over.
Follow up.
Okay.
Would these banks also support community land trusts?
We hope so. Again, all of the AB 857 language says this is how you get a public bank approved. What that bank's mission statement and governance structure look like are up to us locally. I would hope very much that we would continue to advocate for community land trusts to make sure that that's a part of its lending model.
I have a question, which is, can you differentiate credit unions from public banks?
Great question. So a public bank holds the public dollars. It's our tax dollars in this institution, whereas individual money would still go to a credit union or a community bank. The legislation specifically calls out public banks partnering with those institutions to increase their lending capacity so that that money ends up supporting us as well.
That is great. Okay, how are we doing on the results in the back? We have the results. Okay, so let's do a vote on motion number 2, if I may. Do you have your green cards? Okay, why don't we do this in the opposite order? If you are against, if you are a no vote on this motion, please raise your card now. Green card's up if you are against this motion. Was that one over there or no? Okay. Any no votes? Okay, any abstentions? Guys counting? Okay, if you are a yes vote, raise your card.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we need to count for the minutes. Clearly the motion has passed and the motion is successful, but keep your cards up for just a minute so we can get a count for our minutes.
Thank you very much. Jake. Okay.
All right, congratulations to Jake. And here comes our count.
We have Campos that got 1%. Cortese got 65%. We need 66 to get the endorsement, so you got 65. And Ravel got 33%. So no one got 2/3 in the first round. So we will be having a second round. Can you put up the Ravel and the Cortese? Cortez. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
There we go.
Yeah. So in the second round, you can vote for one of 2 people. Dave Cortez or Ann Cortese or Ann Ravel, or no endorsement or abstain. So Catherine will be walking up and down the aisle again. So this is ballot number 2.
I like to be the first one. This one you might want to phone have because the box.
Yeah, we could.
Are we doing dishes tomorrow night?
Here, Catherine. Catherine.
You've been doing it.
It's a nail biter, folks. This is what's the fun part of being a Democrat.
You've been doing them every week. No, not every week. But I've done maybe.
Catherine, you hold that box.
Oh, yeah. Daniel, my brother.
This is the fun part of being a Democrat, folks. This is it. This is why we join clubs, so that we can support the candidates we like. If you're having fun here tonight, if you like fighting climate change, if you like community banking, if you like coming out and voting for the candidate of your choice, please stay active and involved, and please donate to the club. This space is much more expensive than our previous space, and to provide the wonderful wine and cheese. Let's thank Jenny Bradanini for providing the refreshments tonight. Jenny Bradanini is a candidate for City Council in D10, and she is also really good at pulling together an event. So we have had wonderful refreshments. Make sure you donate on your way out. There's a jar.
And that one got 60.
Not as exciting as that. Going twice. If you haven't put your ballot in, it's time to vote now. This is ballot number 2. Okay, balloting is closed. Okay, well, let me talk a little more about why we need to raise money here at the Silicon Valley Democratic Club. Our previous space, how many of you were ever at Harry's Hofbrau? How many of you ever attended our club at Harry's Hofbrau? So we used to have that space without charge because they were very happy to have our members buy dinner there. And we do not get this space free of charge, and that has made a big change in the economics of our club. And in addition, of course, we don't have a restaurant where people can get dinner, so we're providing some wine and hors d'oeuvres for people. And all of that costs money. So right now, we're running at about a $4,000 annual deficit, and we have to make up that money by raising it because we're working to keep your dues low. We have a $25 senior dues, we have a $30 individual dues, and a $40 family membership, which is a really good deal. And we're trying not to raise dues. So we'd really appreciate it if you can help us out with a donation so that we can continue to have wonderful events like this and participate in democratic politics.
You didn't see Vinod here, did you? Vinod. Did you see Vinod?
I'm not sure I know who that is.
Okay, that's right. That's okay. He's on the board. He's recording secretary.
I probably know him to look at, but I don't connect.
Attention, please. Thanks. Can I have your attention, please? Okay, the Silicon Valley Democratic Club has voted to endorse Dave Cortese. 68 votes for Dave Cortese, 34 votes for Ann Ravel. That is exactly 66.67. There is 0 extra votes to spare. It was quite a close vote. Congratulations, Dave. And congratulations to all the candidates who did a great job here today. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So everyone, the meeting is adjourned remember to come back on June 17th. Same place, same time, same refreshments. Thank you again.
I switched my vote. I came forward to Dave Cortese. So if I hadn't done that, wouldn't have been 230.
It wasn't a good one.
And I was a little bit up in the air too.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you hear all the Democratic candidates speaking on TV, and they're basically in favor of everything.
Exactly. That was good.
And they're all in favor of everything. So
Right.
how do you tell?
What do you do?
Personally, I like the way Kamala Harris dealt with Barr.
Oh, wasn't she amazing?
Eh?
Wasn't she amazing?
Oh, yeah, she was amazing.
I think she was amazing. Right now, I think
I mean, everybody else, they sound great. But I don't know how you really decide between all of them. But I think, yeah. So I'm going to sit.
An idea about the RSVPs?
Oh,
Everyone, can I have your attention, please? I have one more announcement here.
I would say about
I have
4 or
somebody's
5.
glasses.
About twice as many as we had. At
Somebody's
my house
glasses
last
was
time.
found under one of the tables.
Yeah, not a big.
Is somebody
crowd.
missing glasses? These are
Yeah.
these are glasses you need to drive, probably. Anybody out there missing glasses?
Maybe.
Yes.
What's that, reading glasses?
Oh yeah, they're reading glasses. Yes.
Just hold on to it if,
Sure.
if you know, if,
So this is a